Welcome back to the Shared Services series. And in episode 10, we talked about training and how to onboard shared services teams, how to document the work, and how to set people up for success. But none of that happens without great talent. Hiring the right people and, frankly, building the kind of culture they want to stay in is what makes a lot of shared services work. So today, we're talking about how to make shared services a talent magnet, not just a delivery hub. We'll dig into who to hire first, how to find the right people for frontline roles, and how to build a hiring engine and retain the best talent. And to do that, Gyner and I are excited to host the guy who started it all here at Origo. Rohan, welcome to the show, man.
It's great. Thank you. And it's great to be here.
We were just talking before going live about the first email that you and Gyner were, going back and forth around, and Gyner was trying to squeeze you a little bit for some good pricing. Gyner, you want to share that story?
Yeah. So it's just by coincidence today I was looking up other emails on my computer for work, and I ran across a very old email from Rohan, and we were
Very old, yeah.
we were debating pricing on email back and forth. It was actually very entertaining to read 5-6 years later.
Yeah.
It was super entertaining to read, and then Rohan, of course, just made fun of me because he reminded me that when we first started at that company, we didn't have a way to pay Origo overseas. Like we didn't know how to do it. So I ended up paying on my credit card.
I think it was the first 2 or 3 months was put on your credit card, yeah, and then finally we worked through the way to get that payment done, yeah.
That's awesome. But let's build on this for fun though, and this will lead into Yassin your detail here in a second. Like, hey, if you really want to make success happen, you figure it out. Like,
Exactly.
We didn't let it get in the way of doing it. Like, I put it on my credit card. I got reimbursed from my old business, and we just kept going until we could figure it out.
Yep.
True.
Exactly.
True, and honestly, you were one of the pioneers, Gyner. You were our first enterprise client back then, and I'm keen to dig in. So maybe Rowan, on that note, maybe take us back to the beginning. How did this idea for Origo start, and what were you seeing in the market that made you believe that, hey, this whole BPO shared services could work for the kind of clients we serve, such as Gyner running a private equity platform.
Yeah, no worries, and I think the good story which Gyner was mentioning there is that the story is great because it started so small, right? It started with a small headcount, which grew, which is how most global capability centers work. So connecting kind of Gyner's story and my story are similar in that way. But really where Origo started, it's a very entrepreneurial story. So we didn't start the business, or I didn't start the business, off a strategy deck. It didn't start with the end in mind. It started out of a necessity of what I needed for some of my other businesses when at the time. I don't tell a lot of people this, but my trade is I'm an accountant, and that's my background. And at the time, I had an accounting practice that needed staff, and
that was in Down Under.
That was back in Australia, regional Australia, down in Victoria for all of any Australia friends out there, and we had a need, and this is over 10 years ago now. What I'm talking, I think it was 11 or 12 years ago, even before. I'm talking before Origo even was around or an idea. And our need at the time was we just couldn't find staff locally. We had a real challenge, being a new business, a young business, 2 being regional. We just didn't have access to these talent pools. And And at the time, I had a customer of mine that was import exporting out of the Philippines, and he said to me, "Why don't you try and hire some Filipinos?" So at 24 years old, I jumped on a plane and ended up in Cebu, Philippines. And through the same connection, gave this thing a go. Really, back to the story earlier, Gyner was just made it happen. And honestly, I'm not ashamed of this story. The first 6 months failed. But I was very fortunate enough that I had some really good mentors around me, that I realized the problem wasn't the Philippines. The problem was me. I had no systems. I had no processes. I just literally rented a house, hired 7 people, and just thought, this is going to be great. And it failed. But
So when you say failed, Rowan, what exactly happened?
just the objectives that were set, such as the outputs, thinking that the amazing people that I hired would be able to do the same work as what my onshore team could do, and without having the systems around them, where you didn't have onboarding plans, we didn't have training plans, we didn't have any quality frameworks that they worked between. It was basically, in my mind, I thought, hey, I can just hire these people, and they're gonna, they're gonna be able to work like if I hired someone locally. Not knowing of all the hidden factories of information, that my local accountants just learned over years and years of experience. I just, for some reason, thought that I could just, it's like if you hired someone now, if you just hired someone tomorrow in your local office, put them in the room next to you and close the door and never spoke to them again, right? Or you could speak to them, could only speak to them via Zoom or phone, right? And didn't have that structure, so it didn't. That was the failure was on. It just wasn't getting the results that was there. It didn't. It took, the work quality was lower. The time was taking longer. My onshore staff were like hating it because they're like, these people, they're not performing as well as us. It's taken all of my time. It just caused a really bad taste in this whole experience. And I come to that pivotal point. It's like, which path do you go? And like I said, I had the right people around me that just said, "You're the problem. You can't blame the people for this. This is not a people problem. This is a process problem. This is a technology problem." And that forced me to investigate further. And then I found something called the BPO industry. And I found that there's actually providers that help you to do this. So then I decided I had to shut down that office that I had, or the house that I had in Cebu. And I ended up in Clark, where Origo still is to this day. And I started as a vendor. I was a vendor for another BPO. And I started.
You mean a client of a BPO?
Yeah, I was a client. Sorry, I should say yes.
Yeah.
Yep, I was a customer of a BPO.
Right.
And I still know this BPO to this day. They're great people. But and I started learning about the industry, that there's different types of BPOs. They offer different services, right? And what I learned at the time is that I learned that they do a lot of different things. And this BPO that I was using at the time was helping me with recruitment, was helping me with the facilities, was helping around with some engagement. But all of those systems I was talking about earlier, all of the training, the onboarding, the QA, the coaching, the performance management, that was still on me. So it forced me to build systems. It forced me to think differently. And then after a few years of doing that, it was a couple of years, the word got out. Some of my customers started saying, "Oh, can you help me? Can you help that?" And we actually grew it to about 30 headcount, right? 30 staff we had, and 7 of those were mine. And then I realized, we actually are doing a pretty good job here. Can we turn this into into a business, and we did. We ended up forming, we basically carved out the small piece of that was inside of my accounting practice, and we called that Origo, and we started from there. And we leased 150 square meters. We grew that. We filled that space. We then went to 300 square meters, and we filled that space. And we've just been on a journey ever since on growing and evolving our business, on that journey.
So cool.
It's been quite the journey. So and Gyner, and you saw the early days of Origo. You
I
were
did.
literally our first enterprise client. So when I say enterprise client, like you had in our first engagement over 100 FTEs with us. But going back to 2019, what was it about the Origo model that made you say yes back in 2019 when outsourcing and BPO and the lower middle market wasn't even a thing back then?
Well, and I'll ask Rowan's approval of this in advance. Well, two things. One is they were working with a friend of mine that was much smaller than us at the time, but he highly recommended them, right? And I trusted him. He's still a dear friend of mine to this day. And I got to see a little bit of the work that they were doing, and it was really good quality work, right? The second thing was, Rowan, I don't want to, like, I want to say this comfortably. This is an honest conversation with us. At the time, Origo had a sales leader, Scott. God rest his soul. Just full disclosure. But Scott was a very enigmatic guy. he would not let me go. Like, he was on the phone with me every day. I think, we just hit it off, and then I got to meet Rowan, and I think it felt like we were all a team together. Rowan, maybe I'm overcalling it, but
No,
something connected with us. We all just felt very connected, and we all felt like that urgency to make it work. For us, it was about the scale of Smart Care at the time, but how do we build this thing? We had just become a private equity platform. We had a lot going on in the business.
It was all about problem solving, right?
Yeah.
It was about, you definitely wanted to do it. We didn't need to sell. It was just it was about what's the problem, and how can we solve that together? And that's something that Scott, we talk about to this day. Customer obsession, one of our core values. That come from him.
That came from him, from Scott.
Yeah, and we just focused on that problem solving, right, Gyner, about what are we really doing here, and we made it work.
Yeah, like, look, and we didn't have a lot of technology. I'd be on like FaceTime with him.
Skype,
right?
literally. That's back in the days during Skype days.
It was not complicated. We didn't have anything we have now. And we were figuring it out.
A lot of trust as well. Like you said,
there's
a lot of trust.
ton of trust. It was a ton of trust. But I will say, we went into it with the ambition to succeed on both sides. Like, I could feel it. The partnership was there. There was and although I didn't share at the time with you guys, Rohan, like, we had a lot of belief that you guys were the right partner. We just did. Like, we could tell very early on, like, we had a vested interest, right?
Yeah.
You guys were pushing us on our process. We'd give you KPIs, and you'd say, "Are you really sure about that?" And then sometimes that was your nice way of telling us our bar was set too low, and that you guys knew more than we did, and that we should be raising our bars. So, like, we got to learn together, and it was really powerful. It was really powerful. I'd say the turning point was, and I think, Bill Emery, who's a mentor of mine, and Yassin, who he is. One of the things Bill would tell the story over and over again, that one of the first Origo team members we had sent us this thank you note with a picture, and it totally resonated with him. And they said that, like, we had changed their life, and we it was really hard for us to understand that she had went to, like, purchase windows for her home is an output of working for your company and the opportunity that we had given her. And it was a very personal note. totally unsolicited, right?
Mm.
That she had sent to us, and it like stuck, you
Wow.
know, with our organization. It was super powerful.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. Definitely you've through the work that you've given a lot of the folks at Orgo, you've definitely impacted, you know, I would say hundreds, if not even, thousands, because, every team member here has five, family members in their household that rely on them to bring this kind of work, and they're very grateful for the opportunity, because people here make a career out of their work,
That's what
as an
I was gonna
AP or
say,
AR.
Yassin.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Rowan.
that's what I was gonna add. That what may be a job, what might be a job just to get me through to the weekend
Yeah.
onshore, is a career for offshore.
Yeah.
This is something that they can hang their hat on.
Mm,
Working inside of these centers, like you in the outsourcing industry, especially in the Philippines, is the day you get a job in the BPO industry is the day you go to become middle class.
Mm.
You can literally get your letter of offer signed at a BPO, and you can walk into the, not that I recommend this, but you can walk into the car dealership and get a car
yeah, into a
because
bank and get a
your
loan.
credit
Yeah,
rating
yeah.
is now higher than it's ever been because you're working for such that it changes people. It really does change people's lives. It
Yeah.
does.
Right,
That's how it works.
Yeah, and
right.
and and to be clear, that comes through in the work quality, right? Because what we're
Mm,
here to talk about today is all about the partnership and the quality of work and the people that you onboard, and that passion, that personal touch, that meaningful role for that team member comes through in the quality of work that comes through to customers like myself, right?
mm,
absolutely.
That's what you see. You see a commitment, you see a drive, you see a, hey, we want to make this work, we want to be successful, tell us what we need to do, let us give you feedback on some things you could do better, right? Like
Mm.
all those things start to come through pretty quickly.
Absolutely. So with that said, that's a great segue. So Rowan, going back to your journey, right? Let's say you're going through that journey again. You're starting from zero, and you need to stand up a shared service center from scratch. You're flying into Manila, Cebu, or Clark, right? And you've got 60 days. You've got a mandate from Gyner. Hey man, we need to have our operation in Clark set up in 60 days, and we need to get it live. Who are your first 3 to 5 hires, and how do you think about that?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I'll answer it from a complete shared service center, not just a line of business or of a customer.
Yeah,
And how um, you know, I used to always say that the first hire would be in HR, right? But I think lately I say it should be in FP&A. But I'm assuming I've already done my financial planning and the numbers are good, right? So um, really from the start is for me, if I was starting again tomorrow, is really it's a good talent lead.
mm,
It's bringing in. To me, it's not about just starting with the people. It's starting with the enablers, right? We're going to start with the first team has got to be the people that can build the next team, right? So starting with a really good talent lead, a really good, definitely someone in HR, someone that can,
the recruiting,
knows recruiting, hiring operations, not just doesn't know just how to hire people and recruit. They actually know how to, build out profiles, understand personalities, knowing the right person for
mm,
the role, can create position descriptions that suit what we're after. Not just
right?
a hardcore recruiter. They know hiring operations. I think that's the key. Number two is you need a really good service delivery manager. You need
Mm.
someone that can deliver this team. I think that's
And what
drive
does the day-to-day job of a service delivery manager?
really is driving accountability. So they're making
Mm,
sure that they're driving accountability and hitting KPIs inside of the operations of the business. So
right.
they're making sure that they've got a good talent team that's gave them a really good team member. we'll talk about training in a second. They've been trained. Now the service delivery team is about making sure that I'm driving accountability to the SOW, and I'm driving accountability to the
Right. So
to the
they're running the
KPIs.
day-to-day operation. They're
Yeah.
managing, pods or clusters of agents.
Yep,
Makes
they've
sense.
got team managers, and they've got a lot of moving parts, and they can be all structured differently. There's a lot of ways
Right.
that certain shared services are structured, but a really good service delivery manager is obviously key. Third, I'd be looking at training. We
Mm.
you need to be able to train, really good training lead,
Mm.
and because the key of training is not just on training training the offshore team. They need to be able to do knowledge transfers. They need to be able to get
Mm.
that knowledge out of the onshore team to be able to train the offshore team. So
Right.
it's a very integral role. You can hire amazing talent. You can have a really good service delivery manager, but do you have a trainer that doesn't just train? They know how to actually extract knowledge, put them into process documents to then train the onshore
Yeah,
team.
and we did a whole episode about it last
Yeah.
time. No,
Yep.
you're spot on.
Perfect. Yep. And then, just closing it out is you're looking at now. You've got IT, you've got compliance. Nothing now is getting by without,
Yeah.
like Gyner mentioned earlier, we didn't have to worry so much about privacy back 10 years ago because there was no systems that do it. But now you got to have the right systems. You got to be ISO compliant, HIPAA compliant if you're there, SOC 2, PCI. Like,
Yep.
there's so many vulnerabilities inside of systems that you just have to protect, and so that's key. You can't start a shared service center without having that right
True.
infrastructure and IT and compliance.
True.
So I think that's what I
No, I
think
love
are
that.
the most important roles. Yeah.
So, and when you came on as a client, like
Yep.
what matters most to you during that initial hiring window? Because you started with 2 in customer service, and then you scaled it like 120 in a few years' time across, like, I remember, I don't know, Rowan, like 17 different functions, right?
17,
But
yeah.
for the first 2, like, what matters most to you during that phase?
I think the first few folks have to be, you almost have to be a little bit more picky as a customer. I don't have a better word than that. Like, you got to spend your time. Like, I remember we had a couple of folks on the onshore team doing the interview process, right?
Mm.
With your candidates. And I was really hard on the onshore team in a way saying, like, I want you to be very, very specific about what you want to hire in this role offshore, right? And that did two things. One, it empowered them to have conviction to believe in the process. But two, more importantly for us, is I wanted to set up like a really solid foundation to make this work, right? Because if we pick wrong, does two things. I mean, you could replace them, to be fair to you guys.
Yeah.
But for me, the sell to grow it faster becomes much harder in the organization.
100%. No, 100%. You gotta, that first few hires will make it or break, or at least decelerate. Might decelerate expansion if you don't nail it. So with that then in mind, Rowan, with Gyner's comment in mind, once you've got that leadership, that service delivery engine from recruiting to training to management and IT and all of that, you need the actual people who will actually deliver. So when it comes to the frontline roles like the AP, the AR, the customer service, like, what do you look for? What are some of the traits that help someone succeed in a shared services environment, and how do you filter for those people?
Yeah, great question. And building off from what Gyner said, he started going down the path of what we look for. So, a shared service center, whether that be your own or a provider you're using, they should be able to meet you where you are as an onshore business. So, what Gyner was describing earlier, what we call in Origo is chaos. The onshore team may not have had processes and systems in place. They may not have all of the challenges that I was talking about Origo faced in the beginning, or my company faced in the beginning before Origo, is the same challenges that going through M&A and they may not have them. So that's when the way we look at that is the first few hires have a different profile than what your
Mm.
team that you're going to scale that with. You need someone that is able to live in that chaotic world. He's comfortable with, has a profile that can build processes, right? That's what we look for. So when you're standing up a team, that's the key part. We come in and we assess, and we're like, okay, where are they at? What's the maturity level of this customer? What do they need? Someone that can work without standard operating procedures? Do they need someone that can build some of these procedures if they don't got it? Yeah, because some people's profiles like to be well structured, like to have everything in place. You know, they like to follow things step 1, 2, and 3. I mean, normally they don't. The customers that where we play at Origo, they don't have that in place, or they've got it, but it's sitting in the back office somewhere. It's sitting in a cupboard, or it's in someone's head, and it was just done 2 years ago because of the SOC 2, ISO compliance. It's not regularly used. So that's where we start. So we really start with looking at someone and where are they at? What type of profile do they need? And we build a position description for that.
Right.
And inside of that position description, we look at what are the traits. What do they need? And we may find that this person needs a higher attention to detail than not. And then we do testing during that phase to get someone as close as we can that can fit the profile, the need for that customer.
So what I'm hearing you say, especially that first hire, so relatively that those first few, let's call them agents. Those first few agents, they probably are more experienced, right? They've got minimum five, ideally probably even 10 years experience in the BPO industry.
They're most likely your future leaders. They're going to be they're most likely your future team leaders, your future QAs, your future ops. They are.
So that means they've been around. They've had multiple roles, right? It's not like they've been in a call center and they've just been a customer service agent for the last 10 years. Ideally, they've got a diverse background. They've been in a customer service. Maybe then they did a little bit of billing. Maybe then they moved to like internal support and they did quality and so forth, right? So they understand that how to navigate the different processes. And then yes, they have. If we get a little bit technical, they're more on the right. If we're talking personality profile, and we use a lot the disc profile, they're probably more of a D. Right? They're high D. They can execute. They're results oriented. They're probably not a C or a high C or high S where there's a lot of cautiousness. They're reserved. You need someone who's outgoing, who's result oriented, and who can align to the objective to stand up that shared service center and can be of support to the service delivery manager and standing up, and then probably become as we execute the process, they can become mentors to all the new agents that we onboard. And that's what we call wave zero. Your wave zero can make or break the growth of that shared service center, because you need to have experienced, ideally people who have been across multiple roles and they are very results oriented, and they get the objective that they're probably not going to be executing transactions for long. It's just to get things going, and then ideally they even have a referral network, right? They have some network of other agents that they can bring along with them on the journey as we start scaling. Yeah. So that's fantastic. And maybe let's zoom out a little bit, to the full hiring process. Where does it start? How do you source? How do you screen? What does that candidate assessment look like? Especially when you're hiring for a for a lower middle market client who have very high expectations. How do you keep that speed without sacrificing quality?
Yeah, and this is where things are different. You're not a well developed shared service center. They're not just assessing talent. They will have you're stepping into a hiring machine, is what we call it, right? So this is what they do. This is their bread and butter. This is what your onshore might, you might hire, 10 roles a year, or 20 roles, even 100 roles. These guys are doing 100 a week. right? So
Mm.
this is their area. So they don't. You're literally stepping into a machine, and it starts ad sourcing. That's where it kicks in, right? Where they've got targeted LinkedIn ads out, going. We're talking about referral networks. There's pre-qualified databases that technology is assessing people. There's hundreds of applications coming through the system that technology are assessing. That every candidate is doing, background checks. There's assessments with culture, skill testing. Like that's all of that is all tied back to that position description that I was saying earlier. So
Mm.
it always starts with sourcing, right? And then the next part of it is I mentioned there you've got screening, you've got assessments. Because it's such a high, these shared service centers doing so much of this hiring, they can't waste time on the wrong candidates, right? So it's about bringing technology into that screening, making sure that they're the right fit, it's the right person. It's why getting that right profile at the start. Sid mentioned, is it a D we need? Is it a C? Is it an S? We don't. It's not that we don't have time. We need to be efficient. We need to be fast. We don't want to talk to I's if we need D's. We don't. We like the I's, but let's save them for when we have the I jobs, right? So that's the key of it. It's about going from there. An assessment. Now that we've sourced the candidates, we've got good databases. We've now screened them. We're now going to do the assessments. Bringing data into that assessment, validating. This is something that we've only improved on, and we're only going to double down on at Origo. It's about anything that's in a position description during the hiring process. It should be able to be validated. There has to be a minimum requirement to hire this person, and I can't take that just from the word. I need to validate it.
Yeah.
If they need to have certain skills, how do we validate that? If they need English
Exactly.
communication, how do we validate reference
Right.
checks? Using technology to do reference checks. Is it real? If you tell me you've got 3 years experience as a team leader, how do I verify that?
Mm.
That bringing data, that's the hiring machine. That's the beast you're stepping into.
Yeah.
And then obviously then it goes through the hiring process, and but that's the key. That's the speed. That's how it's addressed. It's very proactive. It's very it's a process. It's systems that you're relying on, and moving through that system as fast as you can.
And I love you touched on the minimum requirements for hiring, and getting clear on that could really make or break, right, the success of that team, right? So what are you looking for? If you're saying, oh, I need someone who's analytical, well,
Yep.
how do you validate that? Well, you literally need to give them an analytical problem, right? You need to give them a data set that they
Yep.
have to analyze, and then you ask them 3 to 5 questions about that data set. That there's probably going to be some spreadsheet work that they have to do, and then they submit that work, and you have a standard scoring for that work. That's a simple example. When you say, oh, I need someone who's analytical, well, you need to be able to validate that. Now, maybe for someone as Gyner, it's like, man, I don't know how you get people through that. It's like, hey, we're celebrating if we get maybe 5 to 10 candidates, and to put them through something like this, right? The drop off in the hiring funnel, right, doesn't allow us to really go through such a rigorous process. And I'm putting words in your mouth, Gyner. But here, in the Philippines, there's such a rich talent pool. You could literally be having tens of applications in a matter of a day or two. In a few weeks, you would have literally over 100 applications for roles like customer service or billing or AR. So there's abundance of talent that you get to have your picking, and go through a rigorous process to assess and validate,
Which is
that you're
also
bringing in the right talent.
Yeah.
which is where you got to be careful, because it's a double-edged sword, right? Having
Mm.
abundance of talent is great, but that doesn't mean it's the right talent for you. How do you?
Yeah.
The key of it is how do you find that right one that fits the profile that you need? That's the key. So you've got to have both. You can't just have lots of talent but not the right sourcing, because you could just put the wrong person in the role.
And Gyner, you've recently made a comment about the recent talent you brought on board for your AR department, and maybe I would love for you me to talk about that. And it's like around like what gives you confidence that the hiring engine is delivering talent and not just filling seats for you. And how do and I think and you get comments from your leaders like about the talent that's coming through, and that as a CEO that gives you the confidence. Okay, there must be so what are the tell signs that you look for as a CEO that okay, my shared service center is bringing the right talent that I need for my organization?
I think the signs I look for is, obviously, are they a personality match? They have to be a cultural match for what you're trying to build, right? The second one is, are they? I always measure the same, optimally more. Are they as competent as your onshore team?
Mm.
You got
That's
to
KPI scorecards.
yeah, I mean, they got to be as competent, right? You can't be hiring somebody that's less competent than the people you have on shore, right? You're trying to say it's equitable or better. That's your messaging
Mm.
internally, so they have to be the same, right?
Mm.
Third, I try to look a little bit. Our teams look for a little bit more than that too. Sometimes when we're interviewing, like, hey, as you're talking to the person, help understand their background. What's their story, right? Hey, I have ambition to be a CPA. I have an ambition to be a lawyer. I mean, there's usually a narrative we have
Mm.
found with the offshore team of like they do want something more, and we look for that. Not necessarily because we're going to use it. It just says, hey, here's a person that has
They're
ambition.
motivated.
Yeah, they're motivated to do a really good job.
Yes, and a lot of them is really also about really providing a great a better quality of life for their family here. And then like what kind of feedback are you looking from your team, right? Because a lot of times, Giner, you're approving budgets, right? You're not in the interview process, you're not in the performance process, right? So when you're kind of like a little bit far from what's going on the front lines, what is that feedback that you typically hear from your leader if it's working or it's not working?
Well, if it's working, it's easy. They're like, "Oh, this is great." Everyone shows up. They like your base. They like the first couple weeks is always like the basic, right?
Mm.
The basic needs, are the basic needs met? Did they show up for work today? Are they committed? Were they available when I needed to? How well do they communicate? They're not looking for like the end result yet. They're looking for the
Performance
base.
just yet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just basic needs, right?
Behavioral. Yeah.
Yeah, like are we meeting basic needs? I think that's what we look for initially. I think it evolves into the role, into the KPIs, and all the work itself. Where it's not working out, to be really clear, it shows up really quickly,
Yeah.
right? Within the first couple of weeks, it'll show
Right.
up. They won't show up. They're not being communicated. They don't understand the business. Maybe they don't show an initiative to learn the business,
Mm.
and you just got to give that feedback right away. And that's what we would do. Now, fortunately for us, initially when we first started with Origo, we didn't have that issue, right?
Mm.
And actually, recently with Fortis, we haven't had that issue either. It doesn't mean the issue doesn't happen. It just
Mm.
means I've been lucky. What's
Mm.
important is that you give that feedback to the
Yeah.
partner right away, right?
Yes. And especially in a model where, yeah, if you're managing the talent directly, that feedback loop is very, very critical. Um, so hiring is one thing, but keeping that talent is a whole another thing, right? And here the role of culture and retention. So Rowan, maybe maybe you can, because the for these roles, sometimes whether it's onshore or offshore, the attrition rate is notorious because the routine work, um, and
A lot of competition.
sometimes. Right. And so what's your approach to retention? What are the signals that, you know, the culture is working or breaking? How do you design the shared service center to be more than just like a stepping stone for them, like to come in here and then maybe go, apply to a bank, in a few months time? Like how do you make people stick around?
The way that I look at retention, and this may spark a bit of debate, is that retention isn't HR's job.
Mm.
It's everyone's job.
That's
It's
right.
it's the system's job. You can't rely on people to keep people, right? You need to have systems. And it needs to be built into everything you do. You can't scale anything if you're just consistently replacing people, right? And so when I say systems, what I mean, it should be built into the way that you do everything. So, right from the start, the day that someone joins, do they have a career development plan, right? Career pathways.
Yep.
Do they have a training plan? Do they have, like Gyner mentioned it? So what's your goal? Okay, I want to be a CPA. All right. You can't do this for I get it, but some way that that's the thought of it. It's what is that plan? Well, how are you connecting something to them, right?
Yeah.
The other one is, systems around, we spoke about scorecards. Well, are they, do they actually have coaching getting done, right? Coaching is a retention tool because everyone wants to improve.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I don't play basketball to lose. I play basketball to win, right? And basketball has a scoreboard. So if I didn't have a coach in my basketball team, I'm going to lose every week, right? So if I'm going to lose every week, I'm going to go and join another team. So,
makes sense.
So making sure that, like, we have systems that make sure that twice a month coaching is done, right? And your team, every person at Origo has either a team leader. That team leader has a service delivery manager. That service delivery manager has a director. And every one of those are getting coached on against a scorecard. And it's tracked. Are we perfect? No. I always have to say that. But that's the key on it. That's the key of a retention, right? At the same time that you have those things in place, every team member has a team leader. They also have a HR business partner, right? At Origo, we have a system where we do monthly ESAT scores, employee satisfaction, right? And if you have to score, are you satisfied across the 5 different metrics, right? And your HRBP gets those results. We don't do anonymous feedback at Origo. It's direct. How can we help you if you want to say you're dissatisfied and not put your name to it? I can't help you, right? So we have no retaliation policies, and we protect it as you should, but it goes direct. So that person will then, okay, they're dissatisfied. Why? The HRBP does a call of them. They then get rag tag, red, amber, green. Okay, this person they're dissatisfied, but it's amber. I think I can fix it. They're dissatisfied and it's red. There's a real problems here. All right. And
they're about that's right. Yeah.
And then we're starting to get better at analyzing that data. Okay, now that this was our monthly scores, this was the dissatisfied, these are the reds. What's the root cause of that? Can we get to the root cause and fix? So it's about everything is a system, right? That is followed. Like, we have quarterly appraisal systems at Origo. So every quarter, we have where we actually rank stack our employees. We don't like the word rank stack, and we are still figuring out how to redesign our quarterly appraisal program better. But inside of that QAP is every person has that scorecard. We assess their scorecard, their performance. We assess the culture, and then we determine, basically we rank stack the top 20%. Get a 2% increase, the next 70 get a 1%, the bottom 10 get nothing, so it's about, that's a system to be able to reward the top performers, understand the middle ones that are there but need a bit more work, and then understand the low performers. Are we the right fit for you, right? And if they're not, then hopefully we're going to get them up as performers. But sometimes, so because good performers want to work with other good performers, right? A players want to work with A players. That's another retention tool, right? If we're not celebrating our best people and getting rid of our bad people, then the best people are just going to leave, right? So it's all about systems. Is how I look at retention, and they're the things that we're we put in place.
And
And just getting
obviously, there's a lot around also engagement as
oh yeah,
well.
that's just
Especially the
that's
Philippines is a
sprinkled
very
everywhere.
you know,
Yeah.
group or team oriented,
Oh yeah.
family
Yeah.
oriented approach, right? Collective is there's a lot of collective approach, right? So there's a lot of engagement, whether it's weekly events,
And it's built
fun-
in. Yeah, it's again it's built into the system. We have monthly rewards and recognition, which is an event. We have quarterly family days. We have sports events, sports teams. Every I spoke earlier about team managers that report up to team leaders. All of them are broken down into clusters. They all have their own cluster engagement budget that they can spend on. Then there's a company
every
wide
week. Yeah,
engagement budget. Yeah, so there's weekly engagement, there's monthly engagement, there's quarterly engagement. It's just spread
annual, the big event, the end of
annual.
year. Yeah,
Yeah, we have a big we have the party, and then we normally have a mid year. Like we just done a family day recently, right? Yassin, that was
that's
amazing.
amazing. Yeah.
You know, it's again it's built in. It can't just be a it's Friday afternoon. I'm going to buy pizzas for the office and do that once. Like that's great. You know it's you make them happy for a little bit, but you won't that you know that you haven't solved what's there. It's about what
Yeah,
can you do, what system can you do in place so they're happy forever.
I love it.
Not saying everyone's happy forever, but that's the
Yeah, yeah.
um,
So, so Gyner, from your seat listening to this, like what kind of culture do you want to see in a shared services center of yours? Whether it's with a BPO provider that's building it for you, or you're setting up your own. Like, what's non-negotiable?
Turnover can't be high. Like I look at the metric in reverse from that. Turnover is the ultimate measure of whether or not you have the right culture, right?
Mm,
So I can ask you, and anecdotally, I can get all the feedback. With all due respect, as a
exactly.
customer that Rohan just gave here. What's really important is, as a customer, I'm going to say, "They'll tell me your turnover. Like,
mm,
open your kimono and show me your turnover numbers." Because if all of that is true and what you're doing is true, what Rohan is saying, then you're tracking your turnover as the number one KPI in terms of. Now,
yeah,
you could bifurcate voluntary and involuntary. Like performance based turnover is
Exactly.
yeah,
different than
Yeah.
people leaving you, right? I totally get that, but that says a lot about your culture. Like and
exactly.
when we joined, at the time we joined, the turnover at Origo was less than half of ours. Like
Mm,
for equitable roles. I mean, that's a big difference, right?
mm,
So, if I were to say to you, "Hey, I look for an offshore partner that has better turnover than ours," like I almost assume that. Like when I
Hmm.
go into it, it's how much better is it than
yeah.
ours?
Exactly.
No, and I love it. And now we aim for 99% retention, quarter over quarter.
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't get there, but definitely from an annual, we're sub 10% overall, voluntary, involuntary, altogether lumped in.
Just over 92%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So about 8% turnover. Yeah. Yep.
yeah, and there's
Just
always opportunity to do better, especially as the things get more competitive. And there's the salary, right? Talk about retention, there's also the salary and how competitive it is, and bonuses and all. But look, this has been an amazing conversation. So if you're building shared services that actually scales, that's really what I'm hearing you, Gyner, and Rowan say. It really starts with the people, from that very first
Yep.
hire to how you onboard, how you lead, how you keep great talent. It all adds up, and shared services isn't just like a cost lever; it's a talent engine. So, Rowan, thank you, man, so much for walking us through the origin story and the systems you've built to hire, grow, and keep the best teams. And Gyner, always appreciate your perspective from the client side, and now as a leader building this model yet again. So, in our next episode, we're going to be shifting gears into continuous improvement. We're going to talk about how do you embed rapid problem solving into shared services. How do you drive change when the
mm,
process is still evolving? You're changing ERPs, you're integrating acquisitions, right? And what does that improvement look like in the lower middle market, where complexity is high and resources are tight? So joining us again, it's a recurring guest here, will be Simeon Gum, our SVP of
nice.
transformation, who's led improvement initiatives across enterprise and high growth portfolio companies. So again, Gyner and Rohan, thank you so much for your time today, and I'll be seeing you soon.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Thanks for having me again.
Absolutely.